Welcome back, press fans. Coming to you from Altman Studios in downtown Brentwood to your ears wherever you are, this is Clocked In with the Press. I'm Melissa Van Rooten, here with press editor Kyle Szymanski on sports.
Hello.
Today we'll be talking about the upcoming primary election, the early start to Wildfire season, and the firing of the former Oakley police chief. But first, let's hear a quick word from this episode's sponsor.
Today's episode is sponsored by our friends at Sip and Scoop in downtown Brentwood. Sip and Scoop delivers smiles for miles, sip by sip and scoop by scoop. Gelato, Italian ice, and signature coffee beverages are just a few of the delicious treats on their menu. Stop by Sip and Scoop at 234 Oak Street in downtown Brentwood to get your fix. They're also on DoorDash.
Thanks so much. Let's get right into it. Our first story is about the primaries coming up in Contra Costa County on June 7th. All registered voters in Contra Costa County should have received their county voter information guides and will soon receive their official ballots for the upcoming June 7th California primary election, according to Registrar of Voters Debbie Cooper. Ballots are scheduled to be mailed on May 9th. If not received by May 20th, prospective voters are encouraged to email ballot@vote.cccounty.us or call 925-335-7800. State voter information guides are also either in the mail or soon to be mailed from the Secretary of State's office, Cooper said in a news release. Moving on from that, the local chapter of the League of Women Voters of Diablo Valley is hosting a public candidates forum for Contra Costa District Attorney's race on Wednesday, May 18th at 7 p.m. in the conference room of the Delta Association of Realtors, located at 3428 Hillcrest Ave, Suite 200 in Antioch. Incumbent Diane Becton is being challenged by Mary Knox, a 37-year county deputy district attorney. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization encouraging informed and active participation in government. They don't endorse or oppose candidates or political parties, and they strive to influence public policy through education and advocacy, according to their website. Martha Goralka of the Diablo Valley chapter of the League of Women Voters said, quote, "Candidate forums are one of the important ways we give candidates to reach voters. We also ask candidates to post their issues, positions, and web links on votersedge.org. Voters can enter their address and get all the currently certified candidates' information on their ballots," end quote. The forum will be moderated by Stephanie Williams-Rogers, who is a League member and current Brentwood Unified School District board member. Knox and Becton will begin by making brief candidate statements, followed by answering a series of questions. Attendees will be given the opportunity to write questions on provided index cards and submit them to be asked. All questions will be edited for clarity and answered by both candidates as long as time allows. The forum will not be streamed or televised live, but a separate forum will be broadcast several times on local TV in the coming days. For a complete broadcast schedule, you can visit www.contracosta.ca.gov/7626/broadcast-schedules. I think that it would be really fun to go and see this forum. Voting is your right. It's not a privilege. Why not take an active part in the voting process?
Exactly. And, there's a lot of people out there, they want to complain, but they don't want to do anything to see change. So why not listen to this, be informed, make a decision, and then maybe your complaints will be answered.
For real. I know straight down the ticket voting, a lot of people do, but why not get out there and learn about the candidates that are running? I love receiving the voter guide in the mail. It's such a valuable resource to be informed and to go out and know who I'm going to vote for.
Yeah, and our listeners can visit thepress.net because that broadcast that you referenced just a minute ago that's going to be on local TV is also now on YouTube, and that video is on our website at thepress.net. So a good primer for this candidate forum.
For those of you who aren't aware, the League of Women Voters is not just for women. Their group, their events, they're open to all. And it's a really interesting resource in that they aren't partisan. They do present both sides. They host these forums. They've been doing so for over 100 years, I believe Martha said. And it's just a really great resource. Moving on, The Contra Costa Sheriff's Office will host a free Citizens Academy in East County for the first time. Normally, Citizens Academies are held in Martinez, but Delta Station Commander Lieutenant Mark Johnson said he wanted something a little more convenient for East County residents. The Citizens Academy will include presentations by Marine Patrol, SWAT, the K-9 Unit, hostage negotiators, investigations, Sheriff's Dispatch, the drone team, the Contra Costa County Crime Lab, and the District Attorney's Office. And then some. Johnson said many people learn what they know about law enforcement from TV, which Johnson says is an erroneous teacher. Quote, "My hope is that citizens who take this course come away knowing that the men and women who work for the Sheriff's Office are truly dedicated to protecting the community." End quote. Classes will be held at the Brentwood Police Department, Delta Station, at 9100 Brentwood Boulevard, Brentwood, on Tuesdays from 6 to 8:30 p.m., June 14th, 21st, 28th, and June 12th, 19th, and 26th. Space is limited, so Johnson asked that participants make sure they can attend all classes. Priority will be given to those who live or work in unincorporated East County. For more information or to register, call 925-584-9878 or email afont, A-F-O-N-T, at so.cccounty.us. I think this is really interesting. It comes right on the heels of the hubbub in Discovery Bay with residents thinking that there wasn't enough coverage. So I think this is a great next step to actually show people, to give them the opportunity to come and see, this is what we do, this is how we do it. Talk about transparency, right? Like they get a real taste of what goes on behind the scenes, because it's not, I mean, we all know, right? It's not the shows that we watch on TV. Like I watched The Rookie, and even now, being out on breaking news scenes, I'll see stuff that happens on the show and I'm like, that's not how they do it. You know? So it's a really interesting opportunity to come in and get a real taste of what actually goes on and what goes into the job. And keeping up with our theme on police happenings, the Brentwood City Council unanimously approved an ordinance that would set guidelines for the Brentwood Police Department's usage and acquisition of military gear as part of the May 10th council meeting. The ordinance had first been brought before the council at the April 26th meeting in order to comply with State Assembly Bill number 481. The bill, passed in September 2021, required police departments to begin the process of adopting a usage policy before May 1st in order to acquire military gear in the future, as well as to continue use of gear already owned by the department. An additional element of the Assembly Bill requires police departments that receive approval to use military equipment to host an annual community engagement meeting in order to address questions or concerns regarding the department's policy and use of military gear. Military equipment, as defined by the newly written Brentwood Police Policy 708, encompasses a broad range of gear that includes unmanned drones, battering rams, quote, firearms and ammunition of .50 caliber or greater, excluding standard issue shotguns and standard issue shotgun ammunition, end quote, and more. During the public comment portion of the April 26th meeting, residents spoke regarding the use of military equipment in Brentwood. After the conclusion of public comments, Captain Herbert addressed the concerns brought up by the speakers, saying, quote, "We have a strict policy on the drones, and we are very cognizant of some of those civil rights issues and civil liberties issues," end quote. According to Herbert, the department has a strict policy regarding who has access to drone footage and an enforced timeframe in which footage can be retained before it must be destroyed. The department's policy prohibits the recording of footage in areas where there is a reasonable expectation of privacy. Herbert reiterated that military equipment was a designation for a wide variety of gear, some of which is already in use by the department. As a result of the Senate bill, gear that has been in the department's possession has been reclassified as military grade.
I think this is a absolutely great thing, not only for Brentwood, but for the nation. Over the past year, there's been a lot of controversy over military use policies by police departments. It seems like it ranges from department to department. So it's great that everyone's going to now be on the same page. And if there's an issue, they can just go to the figurative playbook and see how things are handled.
100%. And again, it just increases that transparency and it lays out steps. Brentwood PD has been great about talking about this is why it's considered military gear, or even things that might not necessarily be, quote, military grade falls under this category, but it's not all armored cars or big tanks or stuff like that. You know, we're talking about things that police do use on a day-to-day in the pursuit of stopping crime. This is a great opportunity to give a little plug, because next week we'll actually be talking with the Brentwood Police Chief, Tom Hansen. He will be our guest, and we will certainly chat a little bit about this, I'm sure. Kyle, I'm going to hand it over to you for some sports.
Let's do it. Let's first talk about the Heritage tennis team. They won their league title this week. They brought home their 8th consecutive Bay Valley Athletic League title. They posted a 10-0 record during the regular season and won the league tournament to clinch a spot in the North Coast Section playoffs. The season did come to an end there, with Amador Valley beating the Patriots 7-0. Nonetheless, Heritage head coach Beth Hill was understandably happy with the season, saying, quote, "We've had so much to be proud of this season. We finished our BVAL season undefeated, claiming the 8th straight title. The boys worked hard, stayed focused, and earned the league title. It was nice to see the growth in each of our players to end the season."
Great job.
Absolutely. And one thing that's interesting about this team is Beth Hill says it appears that this team is going to continue to be successful. The JV team has a goal of keeping the streak alive.
Nice. We'll get it, JV.
To the volleyball court we go. Edna Hill Middle School's 7th grade girls volleyball team finished its season 12-0 and 24-0 overall. This is the first time in school history that a volleyball team has gone undefeated.
That actually puts them at a first place finish, right?
Oh, absolutely. You can't do much better than perfect.
Right?
And athletes from all 6 Bay Valley Athletic League schools enjoyed victory and at least one track and field event during the BVAL championships this weekend. But Heritage came away on top overall. Patriots dominated the girls' varsity event on May 7th, posting 197.5 points. No other school in the league was within even 100 points of the Patriots, as Deer Valley's 77 points were good enough for second. The boys' event was a little closer, with Heritage posting 175.5 points, but that was still comfortably ahead of second-place Pittsburgh, who finished with 129.5 points. And for people who want event-by-event results, they can visit thepress.net, and we also have there a nice slideshow of the track and field event. So it's cool to see the results, but it's even better to see the athletes in action.
For sure. Again, so impressive. I only run if I'm being chased, so if you see me running, you best go too.
The Lions swim team made a splash this week, Melissa. The Liberty High School team saw 16 of its top swimmers compete at the North Coast Section Swim and Dive Championship preliminaries on Friday, May 6th in Concord. During the meet, the Liberty girls team placed 19 out of 44 teams, earning 32 points, while the Liberty boys placed 27th out of 35 teams, earning 11 points. Swimmers qualified for the North Coast section the previous weekend at the Bay Valley Athletic League meet held at Antioch High School, and this ends the season for the swimmers.
We have some impressive athletes here. I would put our athletes up against anybody in the country, I think. They work so hard.
Those athletes would not be as good as they are without their coaches. And speaking of coaches, 2 of the Bay Valley Athletic League's Coaches of the Year were named this week. Congratulations to Jamie Carr. She's a Freedom Stunt Coach and the BVAL Spring Coach of the Year. She not only led her team to the Bay Valley Athletic League title this season, but they advanced to the North Coast Section playoffs, where they also won there, winning that title. And not to be left out, Andrew Lonsdale, he's of course the Liberty boys baseball head coach, was also named the Spring Coach of the Year, and he have led the Lions to a league championship, and they finished their regular season 19-6 and 10-0 against East County opponents. And more good things should be coming this week as they enter the North Coast Section playoffs.
So I have maybe a dumb question. What is a stunt coach?
Well, we're going to go back right into the cheer sport, right? And it's not a dumb question, Melissa, because stunt is a relatively new sport. Historically, cheer has not been considered a North Coast Section sport. You can argue that it's a sport, but it's not a sanctioned state sport until now. So basically, this allows the teams to have real bona fide competitions with judges and coaches and crowds, and it's all sanctioned by the North Coast Section, which is the arm of the state playoff division.
Well, that's amazing. For the people who say that cheer isn't a sport or dance isn't a sport or anything like that, I invite y'all to come talk to me because I will tell you what, it is intense and it is a ton of wear on your body, and the athleticism that is needed is out of this world. So I'm glad to see it finally being recognized as an actual sport. And these students get to go and compete and reap the rewards of all their hard work.
Yeah, more news should be coming because the Falcons are now headed to the state tournament this weekend. We'll throw some results in next week's show. But I would encourage people to take advantage of taking a look at this sport because it is a visual spectacle. The girls, of course, fly through the air. And it's entertaining for everyone, regardless of if you're a cheer fan or not.
Do we have any guys that participate in this area? I know, like college, you see more guys on the cheer and stunt teams and dance teams, but I wasn't sure. Do they open it up in high school too for guys that want to participate?
They certainly do, and there are a handful of people who take up that offer.
Awesome.
And Melissa, I know you're sad, but that's the end of sports for this week. But stick around, listeners, because we have a host of top stories coming your way. It's the start of early fire season and, of course, unfortunate arrest in Discovery Bay of a basketball coach. But before we get to that, let's hear a word from our sponsor.
Today's episode of Clocked In with the Press is brought to you by our friends at Sip & Scoop in downtown Brentwood. Sip & Scoop started out as a food truck, serving coffee, hot cocoa, and desserts on the go, but the demand was so high that they had to open a shop at 234 Oak Street. Here at Clocked In, we love Sip & Scoop. They're just a few doors down from our offices, and we're there often enough that they know our names and orders. It's like Cheers, but better, because there's dessert. Try their cold brew coffee, or choose a latte or Americano for a classic coffee drink that can't be beat. And we haven't even talked about their breakfast sandwiches and avocado toast. Have I mentioned the root beer floats and the iced lemonades? Those are my personal favorites. Okay, obviously, I could talk about food all day, but here's the point. You gotta go to Sip & Scoop. Visit them at 234 Oak Street in downtown Brentwood, or have Sip & Scoop brought to you wherever you are by DoorDash. Having an event? Let Sip & Scoop cater it. Give them a call at 925-684-7710 to find out more.
Thanks so much to our wonderful sponsor. Jumping right into our top stories, the Contra Costa Fire Protection District, otherwise known as Confire, has returned to full fire responses for all grass, vegetation, and wildfires across the district because of the early start to wildfire season. Full responses consist of a minimum of 5 firefighting apparatus and crews. Since December 2021, such responses had been reduced to a single engine based on the reduced threat during winter months. Confire is preparing for a challenging wildfire season and urges all residents to do the same to protect their families, homes, and neighbors. If not already done, now is the time to ensure properties meet or exceed all weed abatement and defensible space requirements. These are the most important things owners can do to make sure firefighters have the time and ability to better defend properties from wildfires. In addition to increasing response levels for all grass, vegetation, and wildfires, Confire is also adjusting staffing levels. Detailed information on protecting homes and businesses from wildfire dangers, including deadlines for pulling weeds and preparing for possible evacuation, is at the district's website at www.cccfpd.org. Which leads us right into yesterday. A grass mowing operation is believed to be what sparked a vegetation fire along East Cypress Road just west of Sandmound Boulevard in Oakley on Wednesday, May 11th. The mid-morning blaze was reported as being a half acre in size, but quickly grew to between 2 and 2.5 acres due to light, flashy fuel and strong winds, according to East Contra Costa Fire Protection District Battalion Chief Gil Guerrero. ECC FPD units responded, along with Confire, including Crew 12 personnel. Crew 12 is a hand crew resource specifically designated to combat wildland fires. Quote, "They are very valuable," said Guerrero. "They come out and help cut a line around the fire, help get the engines back in service, and any other support needs that we have," end quote. It took crews about 45 minutes to get the fire contained. Early on, additional units had been added to the call for structure protection for a home that was potentially threatened by the fire's spread, but fire crews were able to get forward progress stopped before it caused any damage to structures in the area. Early stages of the investigation determined that the fire was caused by workers mowing in the field, according to officials. Slightly later in the day, 2 more vegetation fires sprang up. The first was along Route 4 in Brentwood near Marsh Creek. 5 acres were burned, and mowing was again suspected to be the cause. The second was in Antioch on the Dow Wetlands Preserve lands. Due to the location of that fire, crews struggled to make access, and a helicopter unit was called in to help with extinguishing the blaze. So it was a crazy day for vegetation fires yesterday. I feel like I got back from the first one, and then the next one got called out, and they managed to get that one under control pretty quickly. And then the one in Antioch started out, and it's actually along a trail that I've hiked out there, and it's burned before, but it's really hard. It's all marshy. It's all wetland. So it's really hard to make access. And then the added difficulty of having the train tracks that run through there, it made it exciting isn't the word, but it was kind of like on the edge of your seat hearing it on the radio. But they did have Star come out. I saw some people had posted videos, people who were out there of Star, dipping the big bucket in the delta and dumping the water on the fire. And it really is a seamless operation. I also want to give a shout out. I mentioned Crew 12. Crew 12 is a new resource for us in East Contra Costa, and it is made available both with the annexation, they come from mutual aid, and also through Measure X funds. So thank you to everybody who voted in favor of that. Those funds are being put to good work with our emergency response. But they were right behind me on yesterday morning's fire in Oakley. And they came out, they got there, and it's maybe about 12 or so guys, young, 18 to 25 maybe, and they all jump out and they have their axes, and it was really interesting to see. And so their job at that point is to get out there, get ahead of the fire and dig a fire break. They communicate, and then once the fire is out, what I observed them do was they'd form a line and kind of walk through the spots that burned, keeping an eye for any spots that might be smoldering so that they could address that as well. And so if one of them would find a spot, they'd all call out, they'd all stop, they'd address that spot, and then they'd keep moving on. And it was a really interesting operation to see, and one of the perks that will benefit from the upcoming annexation.
I think the lesson learned in all of this is firefighters are heroes for working so darn hard, but they can only go so far. People need to do their part as well, clear that defensible space. And thankfully, East County's fires, nothing besides a little bit of grass burned. But down in Southern California yesterday, there was a bad fire. 20 homes at least had burned so far. So it's important to clear that defensible space and get prepared for fire season because it's here.
My friend texted me. She's like, oh, there's a fire down here. It's near Dana Point. That's where the wedding I'm supposed to be photographing next weekend is. So we're kind of keeping an ear out, keeping an eye out to see how that goes. Definitely thoughts go out to the people who have lost their homes, and hopefully they're able to get that contained quickly. I also think it's interesting, 2 out of these 3 fires yesterday were sparked by mowing operations. So people out there doing what they are supposed to do with the weed abatement and all of that. But yesterday was so windy that the investigator on scene actually made a good point. They had a fire extinguisher, but it's not going to do much good when it's super windy. And of course, all along the Delta, it does get really windy. So always make sure when you're out mowing, if you're going to be in high weeds, if you run a risk of possibly dinging a rock or something else that would throw a spark, make sure you have a good amount of water with you as well. The other option, I like to call them professional goats, but there are companies that will hire out these goats that will come and they set up the pen and they put the goats in there, and it's such a win-win situation because the goats get to eat all that they want and you get your lawn mowed organically and probably a little bit of fertilizer in there as well, right? and selfishly, I just love to see all of these goats out there because I love them so much. Discovery Bay resident Donovan Zachary London, 21, was booked into the San Joaquin County Jail on May 3rd following an investigation into sexually inappropriate text messages he had been sending to a 14-year-old Tracy boy, according to a Tracy Police Department news release. According to police, London knew the victim from coaching his basketball team. After the boy's parent discovered the nature of the messages sent via an unnamed phone app, she contacted the Tracy Police Department. Throughout the agency's investigation, London's sexually explicit messages continued, police said. Under the assumption that he was still communicating with the teen, London agreed to meet the victim in Tracy to engage in sexual acts. When London arrived at the agreed-upon location, he was met by officers from Tracy's Special Enforcement Team and Special Investigation Unit detectives, where he was taken into custody without incident. London was initially facing charges of contacting a minor with the intent to commit certain felonies and arranging a meeting with a minor for sexual purposes. But after more search warrants were served and more illicit items were discovered, possession of child pornography was added to his list of charges on Thursday, May 5th. Tracy police have stated that they do not have any information that suggests there are any other alleged victims, but anyone who may have additional information on the case is asked to contact Detective Brian Azevedo with the Tracy Police Department at brian.azevedo, Azevedo, at tracypd.com or call 209-831-6334. For our top story today, and continuing in our scandalous news, we have finally gotten the reason why the former Oakley police chief was fired. The city of Oakley disclosed why former police chief Dean Cappelletti was fired in November in a statement released on May 9th. The statement included documents detailing the findings of an outside investigation. The city had previously stated that the matter had been civil rather than criminal, but could not go into greater detail due to confidentiality rules. However, a public records request filed by the Bay Area News Group prompted city officials to release the findings of the investigation on May 9th in the press release. Quote, ultimately, in compliance with state law, we made the documents public, both the redacted investigative report and transcript, City Manager Josh McMurray said of the decision via email. Cappelletti was initially placed on paid leave in September of 2021 as an investigation was conducted by the Danville-based firm Kramer Workplace Investigations. The investigation lasted 11 weeks. Numerous individuals were interviewed by the firm and a report was written with their findings. The press release states, the report found that Cappelletti, who was hired in September of 2020, had engaged in a consensual sexual relationship with a subordinate employee and that evidence existed that he made sexually related comments to a police department employee and of inappropriate touching of a department employee. Following the report's discovery of Cappelletti's inappropriate conduct, he was fired by McMurray. As an at-will employee, Cappelletti could be terminated by the city at any time without cause. As a condition of Cappelletti's employment agreement, he received 4 months of severance pay after being fired. McMurray said the results of the investigation made it clear that he lacked the judgment and ethical standards to remain as chief. The damage to the morale in the Oakley Police Department through his actions and words is significant, and we are working every day to ensure a safe environment for all employees and for all that we serve in this community, end quote. How disappointing.
Yeah, and for people who are more interested in learning all the details, they can visit thepress.net for that complete 67-page report. It's pretty graphic, but the details are there.
It's disappointing that a person who was trusted to be in a position of power would turn around and abuse it in such a fashion. It's really disappointing, and especially with the anti-police campaign that we've seen these past few years. You would think that you would want to cross all your T's, dot all your I's, do everything on the straight and narrow. And I guess, there's just some people who they're not wired that way. But Chief Beard, he came into this and a bunch of other things, and he's working really hard to regain that trust. So kudos to him. I know it wasn't an easy position to step into or an easy time to step into the department, but I think he's really doing a bang-up job so far.
I think it's good, Melissa, that we are holding our public officials accountable. Right?
Absolutely.
These are high-ranking officials, and they need to be responsible for their actions.
And I definitely agree, Kyle. It is good to see the accountability. These are things that maybe even 5 years ago might have been swept under the rug. We see Cappelletti, unfortunately, Mayor Thorpe for his DUI, people who are in these positions of power who have messed up in one way or the other. And we're saying, no, we're not going to accept that. You need to answer for your actions. So it's good to see. I agree, 100%. That's all we have for you in news. But moving on, we'd like to give a special shout out to 2 special events happening at our wonderful Big Break Regional Shoreline this weekend. The first is A Tale of Two Salinities, and it will be offered from 11 a.m. to noon and again from 2 to 3 p.m. on both Saturday and Sunday, May 14th and 15th at the Visitor Center. The program explores the interaction between salt and fresh water that occurs in the Delta and how it affects both wildlife and humans. Also, an evening campfire is scheduled at Big Break, also Saturday and Sunday from 6:30 to 8 p.m. Campfire activities will highlight the park's attractions, and s'mores, those awesome, gooey, delicious campfire treats, will also be a part of the show. Aside from this weekend, there are always interesting things to see and do at Big Break Regional Shoreline in Oakley, and weekends are especially active. Every Saturday and Sunday in May, there's a Delta Discovery program at the Visitor Center between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. All ages are welcome to drop in during those hours to learn about the natural history of Big Break through craft projects. Big Break Regional Shoreline is located at 69 Big Break Road off of Oakley's Main Street. These programs are all free of charge and no registration is required. For information, you can call 510-544-2753. And I believe we also, a couple of weeks ago, we had a little East Bay Regional Park District insert in our paper, and that highlights all of the upcoming activities. If I haven't said it before, the East Bay Regional Parks are a gem. They have wonderful hiking trails, naturalists on staff. They have activities for kids, especially Big Break. They always have something going on for kids. It's really wonderful. For more information on events coming up this weekend, you can also check out our full calendar on our website at thepress.net. Don't forget, the Contra Costa County Fair is also happening this weekend at the Contra Costa County Fairgrounds in Antioch. There are many events on the schedule. They'll have a carnival, or as I grew up calling it, a midway in Massachusetts. I don't know. Is that something, Kyle, do they call it a midway out here?
I've never heard it, but I'm not a big fair goer, so.
Well, I'll go to the midway and I'll drink from the bubbler, and maybe they'll have ice cream with Jimmy's and, all that.
You do that, Melissa. Give us an update next week.
So that's going on. Definitely check out the calendar. And I know last week's special section in the paper was also our food and drink guide. So if you're looking for some place that maybe won't be as crowded because it's not Mother's Day, to go out and enjoy either a date night or a dinner with your family, definitely check that out. And that's all we have for you, I think. What are you doing this weekend, Kyle?
Actually, speaking of East Bay Regional Parks, I'm going camping at Lake Del Valle this weekend.
Nice! So. That should be a lot of fun. And it's going to be warm this weekend. Woo.
Great. Thanks for telling me.
It's going to be warm.
Bring my shorts.
Yes, for sure. That is it for today's episode of Clocked In with the Press. We appreciate you taking the time to listen in, and we look forward to speaking with you in future episodes. If you would like to read more news stories of East Contra Costa County, you can do so through our website at www.thepress.net or through our Twitter and Instagram at PressClockedIn. Be sure to tune in next week when we'll be speaking with Brentwood Police Chief Tom Hansen. Contact us with your thoughts on this episode or any other before it by emailing podcasts, that's with an S at the end, at brentwoodpress.com. Thanks for listening, and we will speak with you all next time. This is Melissa.
And Kyle. Clocking out.
Thanks again to this week's sponsor, Sip and Scoop. Remember that feeling of hearing the ice cream truck coming down the street as a kid? Bring back that feeling by visiting Sip and Scoop. They started out as a truck too, and now they have a brick and mortar shop right here in Brentwood, so you don't have to chase them down the block. Sip and Scoop has all kinds of high-quality desserts to satisfy any sweet tooth. Gelato, root beer floats, and iced coffees are just a few of my favorites. And the whole menu is available to go on DoorDash. Stop by their shop in downtown Brentwood and get your scoop on.